So in this segment, we're going to be talking more about Labour just fumbling all this rhetoric on illegal immigration, how stupid they are for kind of going down this route because they want to out reform UK and out Tory the Tories on this specific issue. I suppose they can't really run on the economy because the economy is not in a good state, which is a separate video I'll do another time. You know, we had another month of contraction in October. We are heading towards, I think, what could be a technical recession, depending on how things go in the next quarter. But this is not good. So what do you do when you can't run on economics? Blame foreigners, attack foreigners. Yeah, boy. So, you know, you go back to Labour's kind of manifesto where they talk about, you know, securing borders and all that kind of stuff, right? Which is obvious what that's about. And then you've got here, you know, Harriet Harman talking about, I think there's a different clip of Harriet Harman, but, talking about Killian Keegan, who's former education secretary, talking about, smashing the gangs and another gang will be there, which is something people have been saying for ages now. I've been saying it for over a year. So people like Zoe Gardner have been saying it forever now, which is that it's not enough just to smash the gangs. You have to come up with a multi-pronged approach, which Labour simply are not doing.
Gillian, do you accept in some sense that politics is failing to put the central question to the public? We need growth, we need people to build Angela Rayner's new homes and all the rest of it, but we don't want immigrants, but we haven't got the people here.
Well,
Are we missing the point?
This is a problem that's affecting pretty much every Western country, and it's impacting politics almost all over the world. And it's a huge problem because it's very, very difficult to solve. Two major things have happened. The first is we have 15 billion mobile phones in the world. Most people have one, even in the poorest countries. So the access to information now about different lifestyles is absolute. And the second is there's organised criminals who have made a very sophisticated business case and have got the supply chains. And even if...
Do you know what takes the hands out of people smugglers is safe points of entry and actual ways of... people, being able to apply for asylum where they are. Like, there's a reason why there aren't, I think, any Ukrainians crossing the English Channel. Is because they can apply for asylum from where they are, and they can they can use safe routes of entry to the UK. There is a reason for that. You know, if you look at the ones that are predominantly on the boats, I think it's mostly people from Afghanistan, or the people from Afghanistan make a large amount of them because they can't apply for asylum from where they are. They were told to come here to seek asylum, and that's what they've done.
If you smash the gangs, there'll be another gang that comes up, because the reality is there is an incentive and you will find people who will want to do that. So you've got pull factors and you've got a business that's there, and that has not been the case before. Those two things coming together have created a massive issue.
I mean, she's not talking about the wars in the Middle East or the amount of poverty there is and things like that. You know, those are the bigger factors. Really, there's been a civil war raging in Syria for over a decade now. Libya is a failed state. There's rampant poverty in so many parts of the world, kind of just outside of Europe. Like, how she's not mentioned that is just crazy to me. You've got this about Yvette Cooper being a great politician, apparently.
I have great confidence in Yvette Cooper. She is one of the most experienced and knowledgeable ministers that there is. She's one of the best politicians of our era.
If she's one of our best, I'd hate to see our worst. Oh wait, I have seen our worst. Been doing this for a while.
Now on track for over 13,000 removals returns since the election, a big increase in returns and also a big increase in the raids on illegal working, a big increase on arrests and enforcement.
It's just the kind of rhetoric Conservatives use. And in terms of like this other stuff, like you've got a whole 8-minute segment here, I think, dedicated to this kind of topic, and you're like, it's not that important, G. Like, how you're not talking about the economy or things that just generally impact people way more than just people seeking asylum. It's just crazy to me. Like, the media are not serious at all.
Speak to refugee groups or someone like your old colleague David Miliband, they would say actually this is about a historic movement of peoples desperate for a better life, and the only way to deal with this properly is to open up more safe routes where people can come more easily to the...
I so wish Laura Kuenssberg actually did this. It feels like we walk around in circles sometimes in the channel. I so wish she would have done this when the Tories were pushing the Rwanda nonsense. During the fall of Afghanistan, when the Taliban took back over. I so wish the media actually started pushing this stuff more. we might have actually gotten somewhere.
UK or other Western countries. But you won't look at that. Why not?
Well, we have always had different kinds of safe ways for resettlement and for support for refugees. That will always continue to be the case, because whether that be around Ukraine, whether that be around the work that we have done on Afghanistan, whether that be on Hong Kong, all of that's important. So all countries should do their bit to help those who have fled persecution and conflict. But whatever you do on that side, unless you go after the criminal gang...
Do you know what takes the power out of the criminal gangs? People who don't need them. People are only giving those gangs money because they're offering the only way to get to the UK. Like, I don't understand how dense you have to be to not understand this. So-called best politician is either a complete moron or she's lying to us. I guess that would make her one of the best if she can gaslight the public. Ridiculous.
You said on our programme a while ago that you were interested in the idea of using another country maybe for processing claims. Italy, where we're speaking today, has started, not with huge success, but to use Albania to process people. Are you still in principle open to the idea of using other countries as sites where people who want to live in the UK could have their claims looked at and processed, to use the jargon? Are you still interested in that?
So we will look at whatever works. Clearly, everything has to meet proper international standards. Clearly, something has to be effective and has to deliver results. The interesting thing about the Italy-Albania arrangement, and you're right, that hasn't fully started yet. The interesting thing about that is that at the heart of it is a plan to effectively fast-track cases from predominantly safe countries. We are interested in doing that in the UK, is to fast-track decisions for people arriving from countries that are predominantly safe, where we should be able to take those decisions very swiftly and also be able to return people very swiftly. That hasn't happened in the past, so we are interested to develop that in the UK. We think that's an important principle.
But potentially you might still be interested in looking at other countries for processing.
We will look at whatever works. But I think the key thing is to be just really practical, and that's why we've been focusing on the law enforcement, on being able to take out some of the criminal gangs, but also to be able to fast-track those decisions.
But again, you know, like, I know I covered it before, there's some people not happy about setting up the processing centre in France. But if you want people to stop crossing the channel, that would probably be the best way to do it. I don't understand why it's so difficult. Like, the solutions are there and they're not as complicated as... you know, people seem to make out, at least in my opinion. You know, you've got Cooper making talking about the morality of it, talking about women and kids are put in the middle of the boat, so when the boat folds, they are the ones who end up drowning, which, again, they wouldn't have to make these journeys if we had safe points of entry. So, you know, you can try and morally grandstand by saying we're going after the gangs, but ultimately there are always going to be gangs. There are always going to be people who are going to sell them the stuff to cross the channel. The best way to deal with it is with safe routes of entry. It's not hard, guys. Honestly, just make me like, you know, here you've got someone talking about Reform UK being a threat to democracy, and Reform UK are eating this up because it doesn't matter how many deportations you do or how many claims you reject. Reform UK will always say they'll do more than you, because in reality they probably would.
Harriet, it's not just the Tories who have to be worried. Mr Farage is after Labour seats as well, and I think the number now was they came second in 89 seats to Labour. How worried should the party be about the threat, or the challenge, I should say, from Farage?
Well, I think people should be very concerned about reform, because they're not just a threat to individual parties, but I actually think they're a threat to democracy, because they are offering easy answers to real problems, which are not a solution and will just increase people's distrust and disillusionment.
You know, they're talking about things short of putting the Royal Navy between, you know, to stop the small boats, things like that.
But I think the Shadow Minister who you had on was really in denial about the situation. If you look at the council by-election results, and I'm afraid I look at them every Friday morning very anxiously after the Thursday council by-elections, what they show, I know, is that is that they show a real fall in Labour's support. If you look at the percentage change, it's not just about who's won, it's who's voting and what the percentage change is. And Reform from a standing start is like gaining 40%.
And this is what scares me, because I think Labour will they're going to try and keep that, that kind of pool of voters, and I think they're going to get split really badly, just like the Tories did. And I think what we're going to see is the Greens and the Lib Dems kind of eat Labour away at the left, from the left, and then Reform are going to eat Labour away on the right. And that, that majority that they won, which was very slim in certain areas, you're talking about 36% of the votes, not a lot, is going to get decimated next election if they're not careful.
Whereas the Labour's down, but the Tories are massively down as well. And I think that the main threat to Reform currently, from Reform, is to the Tory party. And what I didn't see is any acknowledgement, and we haven't seen this either from Kemi Badenoch, that Reform is a problem. They're saying it's not a problem until they say, look...
I mean, they've got no chance of winning anyways, I think Reform will do better than them at the next election. You've still got this kind of nonsense Shadow Secretary Chris Phillip talking about, the Rwanda scheme and how the need for a deterrent and all of this stuff. It's just, this guy's complete numpty, honestly. He got Zoe Gardner talking about deterrence and things like that.
Are we ever going to have a break from this cycle of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? I mean, the previous government also made themselves all about controlling the border. If we try to zoom out for a bit and think realistically, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, will the UK no longer be a destination where desperate people escaping from danger seek protection? Of course it will. Of course it will. We're one of the richest, safest, most stable countries in the world that can offer the best opportunities for people to rebuild their lives. We've all seen over the last weeks the true scale, the reality of the horror of the Assad regime that so many Syrians have fled. People need to escape that kind of thing. They just do. And the UK just does need to be part of the solution. And this pathetic political pantomime about toughening our borders has never got us anywhere. It has always cost us huge amounts of money, huge amounts of suffering to the people involved. And as I say, it's never ever helped one British person heat our homes, get a doctor's appointment, or access the services that we so badly need.
This 100% is it. And especially when we read about, the mass graves and things like that of the Assad regime, there's so much more we don't know about. And especially with one of the lead militias involved in, kind of getting rid of Assad, being on the watch list effectively, goes to show you that, even the new regime may not be that good, and you still might have people running away. There are a lot of people, I meant to cover it, I just never got the chance really, but there are a lot of people who are ready to go back to Syria, and I hope for the best for the new regime. I hope they do really well, but it's not super promising. But all of the kind of talk during the 2010s of we're taking on too many migrants and asylum seekers and whatever, people don't realize, especially I didn't realize how bad Assad actually was. The reports of prisons, people disappearing, the mass graves, all of that kind of stuff. This is the reporting we never really had. I think 7-8 years ago, at least I never stumbled onto it, which might be more of a failing on me. But there are so many dictators like that who do that kind of stuff, and there'll always be people trying to escape that life, which they should be entitled to do so. And so, Zoe Gardner's right. In 5 or 10 years' time, is the UK still not going to be a place refugees want to go to? Of course, it's still going to stay the same. Of course, we're still going to be. Because of English language, because we talk about how cool, how strong global Britain is, our freedoms and all of this stuff, and you keep putting that on the web. Do you think people are not going to think, I wouldn't mind having some of that? And if you want to look at where Labour's kind of missteps are into this, one insider warned that even after the departure of Sue Gray and promotion of the MacMahon Morgan McSweeney, Starmer had not yet succeeded in building the tight-knit Downing Street team that previous prime ministers like Blair and Cameron had. Morgan is only with him because he was the best option to take on the left, the Labour source said. Starmer doesn't understand politics, so it will fall apart at some point. There is no way they will deliver what they have promised. And you're just like, what is going on here? It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense as to what they're planning here. It's going to drive me nuts. Honestly, I'm baffled as to what they're thinking. But they picked this guy because they want a culture war with the left. which is fine. But all that's going to happen is they're going to leave. You know, the softer ones are going to go to the Lib Dems, and the more left-wing people are going to go to the Greens. That's what we're going to see. And if the Lib Dems were smart, they would outflank Labour on multiple angles. If I was advising them, that's what I'd be doing. But yeah, this is your man's. Honestly, all of those people who got this man elected, where are they now? And you've got, you know, the talk of the hostile environment. You got Susanna Reid blaming the kind of politicians for this hostile environment stuff, without realising it's actually the media who do this kind of stuff more. The politicians run scared of the media, but we listen to what Keir Starmer had to say about the hostile environment and things like that.
Conservatives have created this hostile environment, whether it's Windrush, whether it's the general response to immigration, or whether it's just the way the Home Office make their decisions. It's based on this idea that somebody's trying to cheat rather than actually based on an open, welcoming environment. I think we should welcome people wherever they come from, thank them for their contribution, and see them as part of our families, our communities, and our society, and embrace that. I mean, London is an amazingly diverse and fantastic place for it, and the whole of the United Kingdom is better because of immigration. And
no, where is this geezer now? He's gone. Honestly, he's gone. And if you want to look more about the kind of toxic stuff of fueling our politics.
The Holiday Inn has been used for asylum purposes for years, and the simple reality is that residents want their hotel back.
Within that number...
Residents want their hotel back for what? If they live in the local area, they're not going to use the hotel, are they?
A rising number of asylum seekers and disclosure that the hotel bills are going up and up. So this is a failure, immigration, asylum and the economy. And of course, it's taxpayers who are picking up the bill.
You've now got a backlog of 172,000 people, which is costing the taxpayer £7 million a day. And
that backlog, which at the moment is costing the UK taxpayer £8 million per day. And a cost of living crisis in particular, that's unforgivable.
It's clear that they haven't...
There's the cultural stuff there, and kind of blaming kind of people seeking asylum for the cost of the hotel bill, even though if the Tories actually put the staff in place to process people's claims, that bill wouldn't be anywhere near that high, especially if you built dedicated centres for it.
With the issue of asylum seekers, the fact that we are spending £6 million a day on housing them.
If you've got 10,000 additional people in hotels, these costly hotels, even just in the last 6 months, the government is now spending probably around £5,000 a minute on hotel use.
the hotels are costing the British taxpayer £6 million a day. That is money that could be channeled into far more useful causes in terms of our schools, our hospitals, helping to grow our economies.
The cause just of your programme alone.
It's just crazy, isn't it? Like this is the rhetoric we're hearing from this. It's crazy. So when you see how toxic the conversation is, this is why. And, you know, Susanna Reid kind of blaming politicians for this, I think rightfully so, but I think the media deserve more blame. The tabloids deserve more blame as well.
I think that successive governments have failed to tell a positive story on immigration. We rely on immigration to run our public services, to grow our economy. But there is huge concern about how we support the immigrants who come. And, you know, with all due respect to Chris Philp, how he can lecture the current government on immigration when it was under the previous government that it went up, legal net migration went up to almost 1 million in the year to June 2023 is kind of remarkable, because anybody is going to be worried that if you have that scale of legal migrants coming in, how are you going to support them in the NHS? How are you going to support them with housing? And I think what governments need to do is say, we need migrants. They are positive and valuable.
Well, that's partly your job in the media, is to educate people as well. It's to hold politicians to account and educate the public. How often do you talk about this on your own show, which you do every weekday morning, I believe?
Contributors to our society. But this is the number roughly we need, because otherwise you get into this kind of binary position where you have the government saying, well, you know, I know it wasn't one of the milestones, but it's on page 18 of the plan for change, and we're going to lower immigration. That sounds like immigration is a bad thing. We're going to lower it because immigrants are bad, but they're not bad. And then you hand over the political argument to reform and a sort of Farage's proposal of one in, one out. Well,
Yeah, I agree with that. Labour have ceded the conversation to reform and the Tories on immigration, and this is something that I've been saying for a while, and it's scary because, like I said, they won't do enough for these people. There will always be too many brown and black people for them, too many Eastern Europeans, maybe even too many Central Europeans for these people. Too many bloody foreigners. That's the way they're going to see it. And Labour fumbled this by ceding ground to the far right because, you know, when what's her face is talking about this, Harriet Harman, I think it was, who said, like, the problem is, you know, you get people like Farage who offer only easy answers. Yeah, because you won't, you know, you don't have the ability to properly call him out on it. Neither does the media. You know, like I said, I mentioned this a lot, but in that kind of debate Nigel Farage had with Nick Clegg called out Farage on the fact that, you know, Farage argued there'd be like tens of thousands of Bulgarians coming here all the time, Bulgarians and Romanians coming here when they gained EU ascension, which didn't happen. And so Nigel Farage pivoted to, well, all of Romania could be here by tea time. And, you know, Nick Clegg didn't really have a comeback for that one. And, you know, I would have just said to him, well, all of Britain could be empty and in France by tea time. Like, you don't see the French or anyone else kind of scared about that because it's not how migration flows work. You know, you're not going to go somewhere unless you know you can have a place to live. So it doesn't make sense. It's ludicrous. But to blame, I think for Susanna Reid to blame kind of politicians a bit rich, considering that I think it's more the media than anything that has done this kind of wag the dog, I guess. I don't know what the exact phrase is, but it's the media that have led the conversation in Britain for a long time now, way too long, in fact. And so they are to blame, in my opinion. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.